my brain was going insane, and everything was. So I exhaustedly just called out from the deepest part of me, it's in your hands. I can't do this anymore. And I didn't know who I was calling out to necessarily. And instantly everything went silent and quiet and peaceful and pain-free. And then I heard the voice, "Are you ready?" And I didn't hesitate to say yes. And when I did, that's when I felt like chest crushing pounds in my chest. And that's when I popped out of my body and ended up straight in this blackness. And it was amazing. It's like, it was either faster than the speed of light. Maybe that's why we consider it black, but it was everything, every possibility, warm, fuzzy, electricity, home. And then I go into this beautiful tunnel that is blue and white and filled with binary code.
The two biggest questions from my perspective in life: why are we here and what happens after we die? Well, we examine near-death experiencers' accounts from all over the world, men and women, and their fascinating trips across the veil. We appreciate you joining us here on the channel, and don't forget, when you're done, if you wouldn't mind, to like, share, and subscribe, and leave us your comments. Welcome to another edition of What's Death Got to Do With It, our podcast here on the Near Death Network. If you're just joining us for the first time, my name is Mark Lewis. I had a career in traditional sportscasting, if you can believe it or not, but I've been a lifelong metaphysician, very interested in the near-death experience, spiritually transformative experiences, and anything having to do with the extension of consciousness, which is basically a redefinition of what we have been taught about death, that consciousness does exist, period. We don't ever completely go away. And academicians and clinicians are bearing out what people like our guest today, Bri Lafferty, has said about her experience. And so we bring her in today from her binary tunnel, and we'll get into why that's important in her story. Bri, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
So let's catch people up. A lot of people have watched your initial interview that we did at Ions here a year ago. A lot's transpired. You're always a wealth of information. You're always going through some type of physical issue that you become accustomed to dealing with. But you also did, I think, a remarkable documentary in London. Let's talk about that. What that experience was like for you, and to finally have a platform to be able to talk to people internationally.
Yeah, I was invited to film in London after I did a virtual interview like this with a producer that's worked for Sky Network for 40 years. And he asked if I'd be willing to go to London to shoot a docu-short, or, mini documentary. And it was more than just telling my story, which my story, tons of people have heard. It's all over. And this one was really exciting because it was about something even bigger. My story, of course, was part of it, but the big part was helping people break out of the hypnosis of life and kind of break these rules that we think we have to stay within. And that was the most exciting part, is just being able to help bring awareness to the world, and, kind of somewhere where people might be thinking about, okay, I'm trying to get interested in spirituality, how to manifest, how to change my life, how to, break out of, the hypnosis of life that we've been, trained in since we've been a baby, since we come in here.
Programmed with,
Yep. Programmed and programmed and programmed. And a lot of people are just hypnotized and think that this is all and that's it. And it was very exciting to collaborate with him and really come up with something that can help people on their journey here.
Well, in the show notes later, we'll drop that link, and we'll also drop your contact link so people can get a hold of you if they want to. But give us for example of the rules that you say are now malleable and are not hard and fast.
Oh, all of them. So I just actually watched a little bit about how some scientists, not all of them, but there's a few scientists that say it is impossible that we are in a program or a simulation, because computers have to follow a set of rules. However, that's only to our human knowledge, not our spiritual knowledge. When you get outside and you realize that you can break any rule that has been formed, that there are no rules, and you can, the only rule it really is, we create from consciousness. It's not that consciousness is created from us. We are created from consciousness. And when you realize that and you step outside of the physical into the non-physical space, then anything is possible. Anything that you could think or imagine is actually possible, and possible for you to see in this physical life.
So give folks who are not even remotely familiar with NDEs or the ability to transcend, as you were talking about, the physical limitations that we feel that we operate under, or the mental limitations that they feel like there's clamps on. Give them a for example. So what would you say to someone who is maybe going through something in their life, how they could overcome it by utilizing some of the tenets of what you were just talking about?
Yeah. So after my near-death experience, where I was completely out of the physical in this amazing place of the spiritual or non-physical, it was so cool because my thoughts instantly created reality. I mean, so fast, because there wasn't this, high frequency thought and this low frequency matter that is in our physical. So it happened instantly. When I came back, I was like, okay, I want to explore more. And I learned, I knew a little bit about hypnosis, but I wanted to explore even deeper than the subconscious. I wanted to go to pure consciousness. And I was able to meditate and get back into the non-physical. And when I first left my body, I ended up in this void, or this blackness, but it wasn't void of anything. It was absolutely every possibility that could exist. And through meditation, I got back there, and I actually healed from a 22-year-long incurable chronic illness.
That's
and
amazing.
Yeah. Somebody I've heard said, when they say it's incurable, it's because it's curable within. And I really like that. I forgot who said it, but it meant a lot. And, that was the absolute proof I needed. I was a pretty logical person and not a huge spiritual person. I was in survival mode my whole life. So I didn't have the energy to explore, any of these dozens and thousands of concepts. But after I healed, I learned you can do this through so many different ways. You can reach that non-physical state through meditation, through sound, through breath work, through, a lot of different, avenues. And I really dislike when people say, oh, there's only one right way. Why?
Right.
That's a rule.
Well, and I really can amplify on that because I have the monkey mind. So I'm always, it's like my mind's on speed. It's very difficult for me to slow it down. But I find for me, music is my muse. So music really transcends all of the noise in my head. It always gets me calm. So I think what you're saying is their methodologies are immaterial, whatever works for you, which is appropriate.
Exactly.
So you could try different ways to do it. Let's circle back to you're 10 years old, you're having all these physical symptoms, almost spasmodic, and you're having neurological issues, and it continues till you're about 14 or 15. And then your mom, who's a wonderful person, by the way, say hi to her. She helps you get in a medical situation where they try to determine what's going on. So what did they determine at that time that was going on with your body, and what were your major symptoms?
Yeah, so it started pretty minor when I was 10, just a few twitches here and there. For anyone who's not familiar with myaclonus dystonia, which is a majority of the world, as it last year was still less than 1 in a million people are estimated to have it worldwide.
Wow. Well, you're pretty special.
Yeah, we could say that. So it started pretty harmless at first, a lot of cramping in my calves and my forearms. But then I started to just shake. It looked as if I was freezing, and people would keep putting jackets on me and blankets. I'm like, I'm not cold, but my whole body would just tremor. And the twitching progressed, the cramping progressed. It got into my back, my head. It was generalized. It was my whole body at this point. And then we really started to look into it when I got this pain. My nerves felt like they're on fire. So it's a perfect time to talk about this because Christmas is coming up. I'm not sure when this will be released, but I used to describe my body like a Christmas tree when I was trying to explain the nerve pain. And, there's the stationary lights that don't twinkle or flicker. They're just always on. And then there's the twinkling lights. That was, except for the lights, it was my body in pain. And so it was just constantly sending out these pain signals. Those were the physical symptoms I had. Apparently, we had no idea. It also came with anxiety, OCD, of course, depression, and it's exemplified by me being a young person in puberty, which is hard enough, and we moved. And so I was also very lonely. And so all of this.
Insomnia, right? You had severe insomnia, which is horrible. I mean, I have family members who have that, and it's so debilitating because people say, "No, Bri, just relax. You're fine. Just go to sleep." And you're like, duh, that's what I'm trying to do.
You need better sleep hygiene. It's like, okay, I take the warm bath two hours before bed. I drink the chamomile tea. I've tried valerian root and literally no screens and all these things they tell you to do. I did it and it didn't matter. And I would go days without, when it was at its worst, I would go up to 3 or 4 days with zero sleep. And not a like tiny little cat nap where you close your eyes for 10 minutes and feel a little rejuvenated. I didn't even get that. It was literally, I was up until I did something to knock myself out. And
well, that kind of exhaustion is debilitating, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, kind of. I ran pretty well with it. I still was able to work jobs, go to the gym, because I used my insomnia as extra time. So I had a 24-hour gym. I was actually like really, even though my body was always tired, my mind was always wired. And I finally was able to ask a neurologist why a few years ago. It's going to be, I think, about 3 or 4 years ago now. Why, no one told me what's actually going on in the brain in myaclonus dystonia. But the myaclonus, there's your axis or your axons, neurons aren't long enough. So to get from point A to point B, you need this long connection, but mine was half. And so myaclonus dystonia is like, oh, we're going to go. And dystonia is like, I can't. So that was the twitching, the anxiety, the OCD, all the like crazy wiredness was the myaclonus, and all the like freeze, muscle cramping, depression, insomnia was, the dystonia and myaclonus together. So it's like putting the gas and the brakes on at the same time. That's what was going on in my head.
Wow.
So it came with everything.
So after a long period, like 3 years, correct? 3 or 4 years of this incessant go and stay and go, and it's just exhausting. And you make a determination that you're just done with it and you want to relocate, and you move to Texas because you had good childhood memories of growing up in Texas. You thought, well, perhaps a new environment might help. And your mom and you were very close, as your dad and your sister, they're very close. And I'm sure it was very hard for them to release you based on what you had, but you knew you had to get some distance. So then you go down to Texas, and this is where the NDE happens initially after a prolonged period of insomnia where you finally just surrender, right?
Yep. So it was the combination of the myoclonus dystonia. I was getting, they said it wasn't progressive. They don't know enough about it. No one studied that in depth. Oh, it's not progressive. Then why has it been progressing since I've been 10 at this point for 15 years? And then, the insomnia is also exhausting. And then I come down with, flu-like symptoms, and now I'm not being able to hold down water or eat or drink or anything. I don't have a fever or anything. So, some people have said, oh, it's a fever dream. Also, you don't dream in 8 minutes. But after all of this I was exhausted. And that is when everything gave up. Soul, body, mind, heart, everything. I was like, I can't do this anymore.
And that's when you go into this black velvety area. And a lot of people have described this, and I think we ascribe black to negativity as a color, but it wasn't. It was warm, it was enveloping, it was freedom. You're like, oh man, finally I'm out of this pain, I'm at home.
Yes.
And the numbers are a part of it, the binary code is a part of it, which is behind you in the tunnel. So if you can take us through that procedure, that 8-minute procedure on our linear time, which I'm sure seemed to you like an eternity over there, or maybe it was even like a nanosecond. I don't know, because time is not linear, as we know. Take us through the actual mechanics of what happened to you when you had the NDE.
Yeah, and because my story's out here, I'll make it, condensed, but it was, I was in so much pain, hung up the phone with my mom at 2 a.m, and just so much chaotic craziness, pain, anxiety, depression. My brain was going insane, and everything was. So I exhaustedly just called out from the deepest part of me, it's in your hands. I can't do this anymore. And I didn't know who I was calling out to necessarily. And instantly everything went silent and quiet and peaceful and pain-free. And then I heard the voice, "Are you ready?" And I didn't hesitate to say yes. And when I did, that's when I felt like chest crushing pounds in my chest. And that's when I popped out of my body and ended up straight in this blackness. And it was amazing. It's like, it was either faster than the speed of light. Maybe that's why we consider it black, but it was everything, every possibility of warm, fuzzy, electricity, home. And then I go into this beautiful tunnel that is blue and white and filled with binary code, and binary code's going through me, and I'm being downloaded. I don't know with what, but I was like, oh, this is amazing. And there are some other points in this experience where I was with other beings, didn't know if they had been human or not. I didn't even know if I had been human. I didn't know what a human was. Like, it was just souls. And they are creating their own reality while I'm creating my own reality in the space, but we're doing it together. And that plays a huge part into how we can do that here as well. Living different experiences, but, living them together. And I end up with this scroll in front of me, and it's got probably the answers of the universe and a council behind me. And that is when I remembered I was a human, and it shows up my ego. This is, you're showing this to a human. Instantly, the script went away, the scroll rolled up, and I was snapped back into my body. While I didn't know consciously that I had died, there was twice in this experience during the NDE that I thought I had died, even though how can you die? Like, I didn't even know I was human. I didn't know Earth.
Right. How can I be aware and be dead at the same time?
Exactly. And then right when I got back, I thought I was going to open my eyes and find myself buried in a coffin, because I thought it had been months. That's how long it felt in this human-like situation. And all this crazy, amazing experiences I had in my NDE that is all over if you want to hear the details. But I was positive that my parents were so distraught that they disregarded my wishes to be cremated, and they buried me in a coffin, and I'm going to open my eyes and have to figure out how to dig my way out of the coffin and probably die again. And so before I opened my eyes, I tried hypnosis. I tried asking to go back. I tried begging. I tried slow breathing. I tried relaxing my whole body to get out of there again. And it didn't work. And I was getting more and more anxious, and I finally opened my eyes and I saw the clock, and I was like, okay, it's 2:08. Is it 2:08 weeks from now? Is it 2:08 days from now? Like, my parents were flying down the next day. I'm like, where's my family? I was so confused, and it took me a while to actually look and see that it was the exact same date. And only 8 minutes later, after this huge long experience that I thought was months long.
So this happens at your apartment, or is this in the hospital? This is at the apartment, right?
Yep.
So you don't really have any validation from an outside source other than what you experienced. So you're probably checking what's going on here? I'm trying to see, did I lose my mind? Did this really happen? You're having to process that. But take us forward, because there's two interesting parts, more than two, but that follow subsequent to that. So then you come back, and all of a sudden you're having to deal with the malady again, the dystonia. But you're able over time to get a handle on that. How do you think the download, have you ever reconciled that and how it helped expedite your healing?
Oh, absolutely. So there was a time briefly after my NDE that I didn't have myoclonus dystonia symptoms, which is crazy because I'd have them all day,
It's
every day.
incurable, right?
Yeah, it's incurable.
Yeah.
And so then, but I was in a whole new state of survival. People are like, I wish I had an NDE, but they don't realize the distress your body has to be in to die. And then the recovery of not only your physical body, but your mind with what just happened.
Right.
So I was in a whole different state of survival and didn't realize it. Like, I was hearing plants, I was hearing people's thoughts, I was feeling people's pain physically, and it was just very overwhelming. I thought I was stuffed in a sausage casing. Everything was too hard and solid and weird. Constricting. And so when I finally realized, oh my gosh, I haven't had symptoms in like a year, I finally am like, okay, I did have this NDE. I started researching NDEs after mine, and I heard, these wonderful stories, like being cured of stage 4 cancer or surviving 30 minutes of drowning. I'm sure we know who those people are because, they talk about it. And,
right.
They were the first ones that I found. I was like, oh my gosh, that explains why I haven't had any symptoms. It was a miraculous healing through this NDE. And then I was like, okay, cool. I'm going to go back to my old job and I'm going to crush it. I'm going to go back to my old life and I'm going to crush it. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, okay, maybe I could talk about this. So I hopped on Jeff Mara's show to talk about it first. Mm-hmm. And the title's, she was cured of her incurable neurological movement disorder through her NDE. Well, about 6 months after that, it came back, and it came back with a vengeance. And then I was even more distraught. I was like, okay, cool. Now I don't know what happened again. Clearly I wasn't healed from this NDE. Why did it come back? Why did it stop? Now I'm a liar. I'm a fraud. Like, my story is out there. Luckily he was a small channel back then. And, it didn't get to, anybody really way back then. And I just, was like, okay, well, I don't know what to do except for just keep doing what I've always done and work hard and try my best to live a normal life. And it wasn't until I finally was approved for brain surgery. We'd wanted this for 12 years, and it was very successful. It's an implant. It's a DBS, deep brain stimulator. They put an implant in my chest, wires in my brain, and send out electricity to regulate that crazy myaclonus gas and the dystonic brake. It moderates it. And it was pretty successful. And only while I was recovering from brain surgery did I really start exploring what this all was about. And in that, I went to a meditation retreat and got
into Dispenza, right?
Yep, Dr. Joe Dispenza. And I wanted to explore him specifically because he talked about how to get into where there's this blackness, nowhere, nothing, nobody, no time, no place. And there's all possibilities. I'm like, he's talking about the void, the blackness I was in. Mm-hmm. And I still hadn't heard too many people talk about this blackness. And I was like, if he can get me back there, I'm doing it. So I learned how to get back there. And in that place, in the blackness and no body, no place, no time, no nothing, but everything, that's when my heart and my brain showed up in front of me and the binary code started circulating and rewiring and reprogramming my brain. And that is the day I healed from myoclonus dystonia. And I've been symptom-free since. My DBS has been off. And that is the huge part about the binary code and kind of my own beliefs on why this is, a simulation. And we just have to break out of the program. We have to get beyond the program limitations to change it.
So essentially what we have in our inherent spiritual characteristics is the ability to do whatever we need to do individually, soul wise, to create a healing environment. But if we buy into or we ascribe cause to something outside of ourselves, like life, and it's done it to me and woe is me, then you default back to where you went and you said, oh, wait a minute, I don't want to be here again. And you were able to integrate it. So that symbology of the mind and the heart is the symbology of the components that we all have spiritually to effectuate physical and spiritual healing in ourselves?
Absolutely. So our consciousness, or the brain, which a lot of people think is consciousness, is not. It's just a vessel to kind of help move our extremities. But our heart is, I really think, where the soul is based out of. And that's why a lot of meditations tell you to feel, love or gratitude from your heart and grow it out. Because I think personally, that's where, we come and go, we breathe and beat and all this stuff. And when you connect the two, the consciousness, which is your soul, but with the feeling of your soul, that's really where we get beyond the bounds, and we can create healing. We can create healing for others. We can create healing for ourselves. And I never believed in any of that because, I tried everything as a kid, all the alternative medicine, all the pharmaceutical medicine, everything, and nothing works. So I was like, oh, well, I don't get it, but I got it. Putting together my NDE and what I've learned through meditation and all the things that I've been able to actually see in my life. Now I'm not fearful. I'm not scared, because I know, one, it is for a reason. I hated when people said, well, you're going through this for a reason. You've got a big purpose.
Yeah,
it's
you're like, whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm like, I've had no childhood after 10 and no young adult life, basically just survival. There's no purpose for this. There's no higher reason. But of course, looking back, hindsight is always crystal clear. It's like, oh, there was a reason. So all the new things that come up, it's like, okay, I thought once I healed, everything would be great again. And of course, I've been hit with all sorts of different things since then in just a few years. And it's like, actually, I know that there is a purpose. There is a reason. And I will be able to overcome this as well.
Well, I think you have a demonstrable protocol that you've got your arms around, which is the key and the nucleus for healing, right? And you talk about this, and I've heard this talked about by many other people, and I felt it in my life. I mean, my dad used to always say, you don't grow from good times, you grow from adversity, right? Because we have the components to overcome that. But you tell somebody in adversity that, they're like, screw you, man. I've had enough adversity. I want a smooth sail. But you said, I think specifically, the key was you, right? The key wasn't, and that doesn't mean the ego you, that goes to who your core is spiritually, that you have all the components in your makeup with your divine soul imprint to effectuate your own healing.
Absolutely. That is one of the biggest things I try to not only, let people know, but also how to do it, how to tap into our own healing. And I've even gotten into different cultures and philosophies and religion, and they all say it's within. Of course, a lot of it's been misconstrued and changed because you change a few words here and there and what it means. The kingdom's out there, not within, or, pray out there, not go within, which nothing is wrong with prayer. I just feel like when you pray, you're giving that energy away and it goes nowhere because it's just, it's kind of going all over and everywhere. So it goes nowhere. Where if you focus it as more of I'm grateful for this already this has happened. I am healed. I am living a great life. I'm wealthy, I'm grateful for all of that. Then that's where it really pinpoints and finds that possibility out in the universe and the dimensions and everywhere and pulls it in and you see it. So absolutely the huge thing is it is possible within all of us because of who we are as a soul. We are creators. And we've created this experience. We've created, what we want to be raised in, where we want to live, where, what milestones we've got to hit. And for me, I chose a bunch of chronic illnesses that I'm collecting like Pokemon cards.
Well, you have quite a collection.
Yeah. Knowing this, though, that I chose it because I needed to do or hit certain things or be slowed down just to make sure I stay on track. Or if I get off track, I put different things in my life to, encounter and even better to overcome.
Well, and I think two things. One, it's frequency and vibration, right? So we repel that which we just either avoid, and that can be good, bad, or indifferent, because those are all subjective words. What's good for me is not necessarily good for you. But we have to get in touch with the ability to raise our vibration. And you do that, I think, with gratitude is one of the critical elements, because there's so many things to be have gratitude for. Look at your mother, and just steadfastly behind you, investigating everything, the love of a child and the bond that you guys have. And I'm not saying your dad, your sister didn't do the same thing. Yeah. You have a very supportive family. But I think if we can, break out of the old paradigm of saying, hey, you help me. No, you help yourself. What is the protocol? How do I help myself? So now that you've come back and you've literally transitioned into a transition guide and a death doula, explain how that kind of materialized, because you were in marketing initially, you were in the construction business. How did this evolve into the transition guide? Just because you're so familiar with the other side?
No, it was definitely a process. So when I was healing from brain surgery, I got a great job offer in construction marketing. I was going to help bring up this new branch, and it was more than I could have dreamed of in my marketing role in construction, because a lot of people in construction don't take marketing seriously, but this company understood it, and I was wanted and I was needed. But I was just a few months out from brain surgery, and my mom had my wonderful mother, who is always, raw honest with me and fighting for me, no matter what's going on. She's been such a soldier and my best friend and everything. But she had the heart to heart. She said, you really want to go in and blow it? 6 months after brain surgery, there's no way you could work 60 hours a week, and why don't you come home and heal? And I grieved, because I listened to her. I grieved for a month. I was destroyed. I was like, what is all of this for?
Right. This is my dream gig, and I'm turning it down.
That I've worked so hard to get to. And now I've got this brain surgery that makes me feel better. Like, why did I say no? Like, it was devastating. And that's also why in my transition guide and death doula work, I talk a lot about grief that isn't necessarily death related. It could be a loss of anything, like a job. But I start exploring, and I go back into my hypnosis meditative state, and I'm just trying to search for answers, and everything's a metaphor, and it's just so frustrating. But some paths lead dark, some are lit up, and I knew to follow the lit up ones. And they threw books in a river. They, by my spirit guides, or my help, whoever was there to help me, and they tossed books into the river as stepping stones. I'm like, I don't want to write a book. And now, as of this year, I have released 5.
That's phenomenal. Congratulations. That's an accomplishment, because that takes a lot of discipline to do that. And then also, I think you're self-deprecating enough to say, well, what do I have to offer? What am I going to write about? Just dying and going through a terminal, incurable disease and coming out on the other side. Yeah, that's probably of value to some people.
I was like, but my story is so crazy. And, once I released my first book, which really details the NDE part, because I didn't realize how closely related the NDE and the myaclonus dystonia were yet. So I released one about the NDE and co-authored the other one about the myaclonus dystonia with my mom. And then I'm going on this spiritual journey, this journey of self, figuring out what it's all about. And I'm doing everything that touches my heart, because I want to know where I'm supposed to go. I've become a private chef. I house sit, I dog sat, I was doing events, I was just any little thing that sounded exciting, I was trying. And in that, I found a course on death doula. And I had done 2 years of hospice volunteer work because I just wanted to be so close to the other side and hold that authentic, excited energy for people passing without having to tell my story. I could just, a lot of people just need you to hold that space. And I loved it. And then I realized I could take it further and became a certified death doula and, started launching that and then just kept exploring. And a lot of people started coming to me for their own chronic illnesses. And the ones that are successful in healing are the ones that know they can. And they just need that little guidance on, what direction they should take. Because there's probably thousands of options on how to tap in. And sometimes they just need that guidance on what works for them or what options are. So then I was like, okay, well, there's that. And then people are also coming to me for grief and bereavement and finding their purpose in life. And so it just kind of it grows and I just kind of follow it and see where it goes. And it turns out, I do a lot more stuff as a transition guide through major transitions in life, chronic illness, and loss than I actually have been with actively dying people. So it transitioned over time, just accepting and going with the flow, letting go, because I didn't know what I wanted. So I wasn't going to create it. I was like, okay, my higher self knows. I'm going to let it guide me. And so it's guided me here.
Well, we always try to, wind up, because we could go on forever. This is a fascinating topic, your life in general, but also the topic in a macro sense, especially for people your age. You're younger. My daughters are 32 and 30. They look at the world, they see the divisiveness. They say, well, how can this be an intelligently guided planet? Based on what you see on TV and how the right hates the left and left hates the right. What is the so what of the near-death experience? How can you give, an outline or a primer for people like your own age who struggle with scrolling and intimate relationships because your vignettes online are 30 to 60 second, pops where you don't really get in depth? What can they latch on to have some hope for their lives as they go forward?
Yeah, that is a great point. The more technology we have, the shorter the videos get, the more crazy our brains get. So you say you have monkey brain. A lot of people say, well, I can't meditate because it is always going a million different miles and, I'll focus, there's all these excuses for why you can't meditate. Well, coming from a gal who literally has a dysfunctional brain that is wired for, like, my brain glucose consumption, normal scans show small glucose here and there. My brain was consuming glucose all the time. It was insane. So if I can do it, I think I know anyone can. Once again, it's about finding the right avenue. And the biggest thing is discipline. It's like you have to train your brain to tap in. You have to train it to slow down and listen. There's tons of modalities out there, but then there's just the kind of carefree, like, my life sucks. I don't have friends. I'm not in love. That's the hypnosis.
Right.
So
you see get in a pattern. It's tough.
You get in a pattern. You get in hypnosis. So you have to break patterns. You have to break the rules that have been defined by culture, by you, by your programming, by everything. You have to break the rules. You have to get out of the hypnosis. And by doing that is changing your habits. And, you see in movies, the stopwatch, the hypnotist, that's the same thing with scrolling. It's just mindless hypnosis. And then because you're in a mild state of hypnosis, that's going to your subconscious. So then you see all of these things that aren't real, these influencers that show you their best life, or these horror stories. And one of the coolest things about going to London, we got to tour the back end of Sky Network, and everything you see on TV is is a lie, basically. It's all fabricated. And it was mind-blowing. It was dystopian. It was kind of creepy, but also perfectly an example.
Educational. Yeah. Well, I worked in
Yeah.
television for over 30 years. And so I can say in a newsroom setting, and then the news has evolved to opinion. It's not really who, what, when,
And
where,
AI.
why anymore. Yeah. So it's all about clickbait and getting your attention and getting you addicted to transitory topics, not necessarily anything in depth. And I find that even for myself, even though I know all these things, sometimes it's hard to sit in silence with your own thoughts. So you need to have the TV on, you got to have a radio on, you got to do this, you got to call somebody. That's where that you need to slow that monkey mind down, like you said, and find some kind of a modality. It doesn't have to be the same for everybody. We talked earlier about music is my muse. So I really enjoy at night when I'm doing research for these shows, and I love music. It just takes me to an ethereal place in my own mind to quiet the noise in there, that white noise that's illusory. And I think a lot of people are just afraid to sit in silence.
Yeah. Especially in this day and age where it's everywhere. There's noise absolutely everywhere. Even I went on a hike last week, and usually I will turn on music while I'm hiking. And I was like, why do you do that? You're out here to reconnect with nature. Like, shut it down, girl. So I did the whole hike without sound, music, listening to podcasts or anything. And it was so beautiful. And I saw way more in nature than just kind of like zoning out into that hypnosis. I like to also, for people my age who are familiar with video games, think of our bodies as an avatar. We created that. We get to pop into what world we want. We get to choose the levels. And some people, if it's, you can stay in the same level and just keep building and doing these tiny little quests, and you never face the big boss. So you never continue to the next level. But the more you face these bosses, the more options you have and the more levels you get to play with. And then you get to switch games. It's just so much fun when you realize we are controlling our own avatar here in this physical, and our soul is the person behind the controllers who's playing these games. And of course the games have milestones, but sometimes you can choose how easy or hard, easy, normal, hard, expert mode. You get it. Some games let you choose your weaknesses, your strengths, your power-ups, your weapons, everything. So when I take that concept and apply it to our life, it's really helped change. And it's been a lot more fun and a lot more reassuring. And it's given me a lot of strength with these new things that have happened, knowing that, I just want to beat more bosses, I guess. I just want to keep leveling up.
Well, and you're absolutely right. It's like simulation. So now this is a simulation, but people, I think, from my era who weren't, we had Pong, for crying out loud, which was, bing, 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 very slow, not dramatic, didn't have all of the characteristics of the simulations now that are so real, and AI coming into play is now throwing something else in it. I think it's important to circle back to the reason that we do this show is that death has been defined as an end. I think that's erroneous, and people like you and other people who are experiencers and clinicians and academicians are now bearing out that it's simply an extension of consciousness. Consciousness just is. You can't destroy energy. So when you take that step into that tunnel again, you're still there. You're still Bri. You're still unique. Your still characteristics are all with you. I think if we can tell this to people, with people like yourself who tell these remarkable stories of overcoming these incredible physical infirmities, which we know the physical is just a manifestation of the spiritual. If we can give them a primer on how to operate in life, then that's a job well done.
Yeah, absolutely. And I really think, I've narrowed it down to think it, feel it, see it. So you have the thought, you want to see health, you want to see wealth, you want to see a relationship, but then you feel that with gratitude because and a knowing that you have it. And it just might take some time to see it happen in reality, but you think it, then you feel it, and then you will see it. And that is, I kind of think, the very boiled down version of manifestation and creation.
Well, and you did that because you're engaged now to Justice.
Yes.
So,
Yep. I created that too.
But that's wonderful, because now you're an example of what you talk about. So, because a lot of people in this space that's kind of nebulous, or people can't get their arms around it, and there's not a perimeter. Think it, feel it, see it. That's the kind of thing that we want to leave people with, especially people your age, because we didn't grow up with what you're accustomed to. So you need to talk in the lexicon and the jargon of your own age group so they can understand it. And the simulation is a great way to talk about it, the different levels, the avatars, and then to translate it into something that you can do on a daily basis. But tell people how they can get a hold of you if they want to avail themselves of your books or your counseling, and what's the best way to get a hold of you?
My website is the best way. It's got all my socials. It's got my email. It's got whatever way you want to reach out to me on my website. And that is Bri0nic LLC.com. And Bri0nic came by because after my brain surgery and the computer chip implanted, basically, I had someone call me, oh, you're bionic now. You're Bri0nic. And then I had to add the zero. Yeah, I had to add the zero because of all the binary code that I've experienced in my NDE and post. So I had to make it a little playful.
No, it's very cute. And we really appreciate the fact that you're willing to step out there and be so vulnerable, because I think a part of this experience for experiencers who I have met, it's about being authentic and vulnerable. That those are characteristics that we all embody, and a lot of us are afraid to be vulnerable. But I mean, hell, every time you turn around, you're getting another way to test your new paradigm, right? So
Yep.
We really appreciate the fact that you're willing to put your heart out there and tell your story, because it's a remarkable story, and it's not even over. You're just entering into the best part of your story, because now you have more of a platform to talk about what you've learned and help others. Because at the end of the day, my purpose is to help others understand that they're not powerless, they're powerful. And you gave them a way to enact that in their lives. So we appreciate that.
Yeah. Well, and I tell my story because it was terrifying at first, but the more I tell it, the more people say thank you, and it's helped them. So I tell it because it helps people. And I'm very, very honored to be able to do that.
Well, we were honored to talk to you again today. Please give my best to your family. And I look forward to seeing you in person down the road. Big things from you. So you're embracing the mantle of responsibility and articulating it very well. So I really do appreciate your ability to be so open about such what some people might characterize as a very distressing situation, but for you was a liberating situation.
Yeah, absolutely. And I appreciate you, taking some time and having another conversation.
You bet. You have a great day, and we look forward to our next visit.
Awesome.